And welcome everybody to the Huddle, KGA 9 sports streaming talk show. We come to each week at this time. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon. How are you today?
Good. Again, a lot to talk about. It's that time of the year, a lot of crossover and things starting up, other things kind of right in the middle of the season, like football.
If you would go by hockey standings, Arizona football would be 3-1-2, meaning 3 wins, a
Yeah.
loss, and 2 overtime losses.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we can't go by hockey standings, and they do have 2 overtime losses, both on the road, one to an SEC team, and then the 3 overtime loss at USC. This coming Saturday night, this past Saturday night, I should say, almost a mirror image in a way, Pat, of that Mississippi State game, because in that game early on, the Wildcats could do nothing right. They were down 14-0 early. In this game against USC, they were up 17-0, and you were thinking, oh my goodness. And then it kind of came back together at the end, only for the Wildcats to lose in overtime.
Yeah, and you had that sense that when they got up 17-0 that, okay, this can't keep going at this pace, and it didn't. Unfortunately, there was a turnover, and then USC finally got going. But, I think as a whole, Jason, if you were to say, look, they're going to lose by a touchdown and have a strong showing against a top 10 Washington team. They're going to go to USC, a top 10 team, take them to triple overtime. Just on, on the surface, you'd say, wow, that's great. The Wildcats are improving, and they are. And I think that's the biggest takeaway is they're improving. But again, the biggest and most important stat is the record, and right now they sit at 3-3.
I mean, if these 2 losses help them get a couple of wins here down the, upcoming now, Washington State, UCLA, Colorado, those type of wins, then you're kind of okay with the losses. But if they revert back and don't play well, then that's something else. To me, they outplayed and outgained USC. Having said that, though, and I know we're having a little bit of a quarterback battle or debate here on Twitter, and you and I see this differently. I do think the Wildcats should stick with Jayden de Laura, and here's why. I don't think there's a big difference between the 2 quarterbacks with skill level. Jayden de Laura, I think, is going to give you a couple of more spectacular plays, and I think he's going to make a couple more mistakes. I don't think Fafita is as exciting, if you will, but he's going to make fewer mistakes. But the point is this, Pat. If you go ahead and you make this quarterback change, this is a major disruption to this year's team, to the program. This will impair permanently the relationship between Jedd Fisch and Jayden de Laura, who he made a 3-year commitment to. It's one thing if de Laura played himself out of the job, but that hasn't happened. It'd be one thing if Fafita beat Washington and USC, but that hasn't happened. I would not make a quarterback change right now.
Well, the one thing we can say, there's a quarterback controversy. We can say that, as fans, we can say, oh, we want to see one quarterback over the other. There's no quarterback controversy because Jedd Fisch won't allow it to be. He said for flat out, if Jayden de Laura is 100%.
No, Pat, just say it. You think Fafita should be the quarterback?
I'm not done yet, Jason.
Okay, sorry.
He said there's not a quarterback. It's going to be Jayden de Laura. We get that. I think he's wrong, but that's he's the head coach. I'm not.
Okay, and so again, why do you want Fafita in there?
Well, because I see this team making more strides with him at quarterback than I do with Jayden de Laura. I see too many mistakes with Jayden de Laura, and for a freshman, Noah Fafita has been extremely impressive. Oh, by the way, he just won Pac-12 and National Freshman of the Week awards. Not too shabby. 5 touchdown passes. Never been done for an Arizona quarterback against a top 10 team. He did against 2 top, back-to-back. He went 4 and 5 touchdown passes. Washington 4, USC.
That's a little bit of an inflated stat, though, because some of those were in overtime.
Well, maybe so, but he had 3 right away. I mean, 3 in the first 3 quarters or whatever. I think that stats are stats. You can make them fit the way you want. I just in the eye test, the offense runs better. I don't think there's any question the offense runs better. And I look at eye test. I didn't make a commitment to Jayden de Laura when he came from Washington State like Jedd Fisch did, so he's got to honor it. I get it. I think it's wrong. And I don't believe, like you do, that this would upset the team so much. The team is going along great right now. If Jedd Fisch came into the locker room before the Washington State game Saturday afternoon and said to them, well, Jayden's only 99.9% healthy, so he's not starting, nobody's going to care. They're going to be excited because they've got a great quarterback in Noah Fafita. If they go back to Jayden de Laura, I'm not so sure. We'll have to see. I've seen it go I've seen it go both ways, Jason. I've seen it go terrifically when the starter comes back, and I've seen it go horribly. And then what do? Then you're really in trouble. If Jayden de Laura comes back and they don't miss a beat, and they go and they beat Washington State, assuming he comes back for the Washington State game, then that's great. But if they don't, you open yourself up, because everybody on the outside thinks that Fafita is playing like the better quarterback.
If de Laura plays himself out of a job, that's one thing. But you talk about how the offense moved better. I think the offense moved better because they've got the right running back in there now. Nothing against Michael Wiley. I think he's a fine running back. But Jonah Coleman runs on a different level. This is a physical back who was intimidating to the defense. He was running over USC Trojans.
He did.
This guy runs hard. You can't say enough about how this guy runs.
But Jason,
I think part of the offense doing better is Jonah Coleman in there.
There's no question that a good running game helps the passing game, but a good passing game helps the running game. You can make that debate. Is it you've got a little bit better established running game and it's helping Noah Fafita with the passing, or is Noah Fafita so much quicker at making decisions, getting the ball out, that puts the defense on their back on their heels and it opens up the run game? Or is it just a complementary thing where the two working together, a different running back who's got more power and is clicking right now, plus a quarterback who's got a better decision-making, quicker ability, and he's clicking right now? Maybe the two of them together are what's making it happen. And by the way, I think we've watched USC for 3 weeks in a row now not look like a very good not look like a top 10 football team. That's why they've dropped about 4 spots in the rankings over the last 3 weeks, even though they're undefeated.
Well, at least on defense, the letdown at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think you have to give credit. We can't forget Arizona's defense made Caleb Williams look nothing like a Heisman Trophy candidate.
These sacks, they were a little too aggressive, too many penalties.
There's
too many
no
pass
question they made mistakes.
Many hits out of bounds. All USC has to do is run out of bounds. It's like they're going to get hit out of bounds and get a first down. Can you stop hitting these guys out of bounds?
They need to clean some stuff up, and that's on coaching too. You've got to hold guys accountable, and you've got to call them out sometimes. So to me, the best coaches are always on the player's side, but when they make those mistakes, you get them over to the sideline and you say, that was a selfish move and you just hurt the team. And I don't see that happening right now. I wish that would happen.
Coaches aren't doing that today in 2023.
I still think that's the one time you do it. When you make a selfish penalty, like a personal foul, a late hit, that type of thing.
Yeah.
You got to.
Even you saw Fafita in the second quarter take too many sacks. He was almost getting a little too overconfident.
I think
what he was doing well was just delivering the ball and getting it out quickly.
And that's what he went back to.
That's what he's been known for ever since he got on campus.
And that's what he went back
to.
to.
His decisiveness.
Yeah.
If de Laura did that decisiveness, he'd be right there too. I would go back to de Laura against Washington State, his old team, and see what he could do and get a win against those guys. That's where I would go back, assuming he can play. We don't know the extent of his injury. They don't make it public.
I'm gonna say this to you, and somebody said it to me as I was at a watch party on Saturday night. Somebody said this to me: if you knew what you had in Noah Fafita, and I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure Jed Fish already knew what he had in Noah Fafita after having him last year, just redshirting him last year. If you knew what you had in Noah Fafita and you watched Jayden de Laura in the game at Mississippi State throw 4 interceptions in the first quarter, and you pulled him and you put Noah Fafita in, would we have won that game? Just an interesting thought.
You're talking about the California game now?
No, I'm talking about the Mississippi State game at Mississippi State.
You're saying if they pulled de Laura and put Fafita in the Mississippi? No.
Yes. Yeah.
I wasn't feeling that at the time of the Mississippi State game. I think they got a little bit lucky with the California game.
He was terrible in the first quarter of that game.
Oh, but he brought them back.
Yeah, he brought them back. Mississippi State, turns out Mississippi State's not very good.
He brought them back.
They're not as good as they were last year.
Pat, if you had told me at 8:30 our time, give or take a few minutes, on Saturday night, that the Diamondbacks would be up 9-0 or whatever it was to the Dodgers, and Arizona football would be up 17-0 at USC. So both these games, in LA, Diamondbacks and the Arizona Wildcats, the chances of those two happening, it was a WTF. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, that was crazy.
I can't believe this. This will never, just capture this. This is never going to happen.
We were all
again.
shocked too, because we were keeping tabs on the Diamondbacks game. They won 11-2, and then they end up winning last night. So now they're up 2-0. And then, to have that 17-0 lead, it it was a pretty surprising night all the way around on Saturday night. And I think we can't be too critical, Jason. Of course, Arizona had a chance to win that game, and I've said it to you, and Jed Fish will disagree. But I think you got to go for 2 there in that first overtime. I think it's a no-brainer to go for 2 in that overtime. And he can say, "Oh, we had faith in our defense. We were stopping Caleb." At that point, the defense was gassed, and you weren't stopping Caleb Williams at the end there, and at the end of the fourth quarter, and you weren't stopping him in overtime. And I would have gone for 2. I would have rolled the dice. Turns out they lost anyway, and that's what happens when you're on the road. The home team just seems to have that edge in overtime and double overtime and a triple overtime, and I would have gone for 2.
I can see that. I can. At the time, I was feeling it was like, I don't want this game to be decided by one play. But looking at it now,
it was decided by one play, though.
Yeah, it's going to be decided by one play anyway. Yeah. You might as well have it be the play where you're on offense. I see it now. I thought of it at the time, and I'm like, go for 1 and keep the game going. I did think that at the time. I do think so. I can't fault Fish because that's what I was thinking. Looking back on it, I do agree with you now. That would have been 2 to go the right decision. How about icing the kicker? Has that ever worked before? I mean, usually what you do, it wasn't the kicker who got iced. It was the long snapper who got iced. It never works.
It never works, and it worked that time. How about that? Yeah. I mean, they avoided one there. I also would have liked to see our field goal attempt go through as well. Unfortunately, it didn't. But then maybe
that's a long way to kick a football.
It's a long way to kick it, but it's in his repertoire. He can kick a field goal now. But sometimes you just put a little too much behind it. I think that's what he did.
Yeah. All right, so it's Arizona football at Washington State on this weekend. Wildcats need to start getting some wins here because you got to get to 6. Got to get to 6
right.
That bowl game schedule gets a touch easier here, but not that much with some of these ranked teams. All right, so the other big news, it's a little bit news of our own that happened just last week, is that the Arizona Coyotes, their games are going to be on free TV. And, there's been a shakeup here with the regional sports networks and what's going on in Phoenix with Bally Sports Arizona. And so our sister station, K-Gun sister station, which is ABC 15, which is owned by EW Scripps. So is LAF TV, LAFF TV, also owned by EW Scripps. And the Coyotes games are going to be free over the air in Tucson this season. There's one cable TV game, I think, but 81 out of 82, if I'm not mistaken, are going to be on LAF TV. And the Arizona Coyotes are going to be on free TV in Tucson. Further strengthening, I would say, their tie to Tucson. Obviously, they've got the Tucson Roadrunners in the AHL affiliate. But, give their CEO credit and president. They were down here for the preseason game, had a preseason game here, didn't have to have a preseason game here right. Like they had to have one last year when their arena wasn't ready. But a nice little commitment for the Arizona Coyotes to Tucson, something we don't really have as much with the other 3 professional teams up there.
Yeah, it was nice to see him come down here, Jason. They came to a bigger arena to play.
Well, they've got and we asked Javier Gutierrez about that, and they're trying. They are trying.
Oh, I know they are.
The vote in Tempe fell through 4 months ago. Now they've had an intent to purchase a plot of land in Mesa, where they're hoping to not have a vote. They are really trying. I mean, they are trying to make Arizona their permanent home. Why leave? You got one of the biggest TV markets here. You don't want to leave. So they are trying.
Well, and the NHL doesn't want them to leave either, Jason. They want this to work, and it's worked fairly well, but it hasn't worked, terrifically yet. And I think they're waiting for that. Part of that has to be you got to win on ice, and it's been a struggle at times for the Coyotes, and I think they're starting to make that ascent back up, but it's going to be a slow, long process. And getting a new arena would certainly help because there is a core group of fans.
Well, they played well though at Mullet last year. They
did. They played very well. Eighth best record in the NHL. They did not play well away from there though. They were not good on the road, and they've got to turn that around. We've got a response from one of the viewers here about he's down with free TV and go Coyotes, go Yotes. Absolutely.
There's got to be some kids out there whose parents can't afford cable or satellite who are now going to be able to see this game where they otherwise couldn't. That's who I think about. When I was a kid, cable TV and the whole deal wasn't as expensive as it is today.
That's right.
And we had cable and we had Sports Channel growing up, and I watched the New Jersey Devils games on Sports Channel. But actually there was a town near me in New Jersey that actually back in those days, believe it or not, didn't have cable TV. South Orange, I wonder, I'm like, well, you couldn't see those games. So there is a small percentage of people who this is going to impact
Yeah.
positively. So I do like it. The more the availability that you can have, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, and just to re-explain, it's Channel 9, KGUN 9 has sub channels, so we have 9.1 is
9.2.
where you get KGUN. It'll be 9.2, the Laugh TV here in Tucson. I think
And the same broadcast you saw last year.
yeah, in the same broadcasters, it'll be the same, and that's great. It's great for us here in Tucson to be able to carry it on KGUN, our sub channel, and I think what it really says, Jason, is that the whole landscape has changed for sports television, and it's continuing to change, and it's not just going to be ESPN anymore. You see so many more games now on Fox. You see so many more games now on the broadcast side of TV, and we're not alone. The Coyotes coming to KGUN and to our sister station ABC 15 in Phoenix. Also, our script station in Vegas is getting the Vegas Golden Knights.
And speaking of all that, our special guest joins us now. He's Matt McConnell, the Arizona Coyotes play-by-play voice, who's going to be on Laugh TV. Are you ready for Laugh TV, Matt McConnell?
In Tucson? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And guys, thanks for having me today. And we'll kick it off Friday night in New Jersey.
Yeah,
that's right. I'm from West Orange, New Jersey, by the way, where the New Jersey Devils used to practice, and they used to play obviously in the Meadowlands. Now they play in Newark. I'm Jason Barr, Pat Parris here on the Huddle with Matt. Matt, what changes for you? Anything?
I don't think so. I mean, I've been doing it long enough. Heck, I go back with Pat all the way back to my days in Pittsburgh.
1996. 1996.
For some reason, I think he hired me at WTAE, or for somehow he greenlighted that, and I'm still trying to figure out why he did that way back then. But no, I don't think it changes. I think for the fans it changes, and in a lot of ways, I think it changes for the better for them. But speaking of change, and I know we're going to get into it, I'm excited for the season because I think we've got some really good young players to talk about. I do think that the team has made strides. They added a bunch of free agents in the offseason. So, from my standpoint in the booth, I'll just continue to do what I do, and that's call the games, and hopefully we can bring some enhancements along the way, and make it a lot of fun for the fans to watch, and hopefully a winning team as well.
And I think the excitement is already there, Matt. We saw it on Saturday when the final preseason game was down here in Tucson. And Coyotes, the second youngest team, I think, in the NHL, and that's not necessarily a knock. I think that means that they're ascending, and they're starting with the second youngest team, and that's okay.
Well, you know what? That's a great point, Pat, because they are. I saw number 4, but it could be number 2. I'm not, but we're in the top 5 in terms of being young, and what that tells me is a lot of the young kids that they've drafted over the last few years are finally starting to turn the corner and play as 20 somethings, right? So it's not the Pittsburgh Penguins, whose average age is just under 31. It's a very young team, and part of the goal for General Manager Bill Armstrong is to try to create the core that is going to be good, not for a year or two, but be good for a very, very long time. And that sometimes that's hard to do in hockey, but you look at teams like the Pittsburgh Penguins, like the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think we're starting to see it a little bit in the Vegas Golden Knights, although they kind of went the non-traditional way of getting good. In hockey, it just takes longer. In the NBA, you can have a superstar in college come in and make an impact right away. Whereas hockey's a lot more like baseball, where you have a couple of rungs before you get into the league. I will throw a little note out too for the Tucson Roadrunners, the Coyotes American League team down where you guys are. They've got some really good talent on that lineup right now. Dylan Gunther, who was a first-round pick, who was a tremendous player for Team Canada as well, went to the Memorial Cup last year. He's going to start in Tucson. They've got a really good nucleus, and that's one thing that I think we're starting to see a little bit with the Coyotes is they're creating depth. And the 2 years where they kind of bit the bullet, it's starting to pay off, and they've drafted well. Heck, they got 20 draft picks in the first 3 rounds of the next 3 years. So the pipeline's continuing, but I think fans are getting excited for what's in Arizona and what's going to be playing in Tempe this season.
Well, Matthias Michelli, I believe, had the 4th most votes for the Calder Trophy. He played in Tucson, and a lot of people here kind of want to see Mike Carcone stick up there. What are your thoughts on him and Michelli and some of those guys you're talking about?
Well, Carcone's going to get an opportunity in the bottom 6, and he's been playing with Jack McBain, who is a center who played at Boston College, and he's got some toughness on the wing in Liam O'Brien, who's kind of become a fan favorite. So I think what Carcone's going to do to that line, guys, is add some speed, right? They had a long-time player here by the name of Christian Fisher who kind of played up and down the lineup. They elected not to re-sign him. Instead, they gave Carcone a one-way deal. So if he were to go back to Tucson, he'd have to go through waivers, and I just don't see that happening. I think he's on his way in terms of a National Hockey League.
It's well deserved. I mean, there's nothing more he could do down here.
Yeah, no, exactly. And he'll play in a bottom 6 role to start out, but he's got skill and he adds depth, and that'll, I think, help the Coyotes. As far as Matias goes, if you look at his numbers, and you compare them in the race for the Calder Trophy last year, Matty Beniers in Seattle, the Michigan kid, the University of Michigan kid, he had better numbers. But if you look at it per game, a lot of categories, Michelli actually was better than Matty Beniers, but he missed about 15, 16 games in the second half of the season, and that really kind of put him back. So he's going to play on a line that was very good last year. He'll be on the left side with Nick Bugstad, who's a big center in the middle. And on the right side, they'll have Lawson Krause. And Krause has been a fixture in the Coyotes lineup now for about 6 years. And he goes to the right side where he was last year. And he played his entire junior career on the right side. So the one thing we know about this group going into New Jersey is they're going to use that. They're going to keep that line together. And they're going to keep the Keller, Barrett, Hayton, Nick Schmaltz line together, because both of those formed a really good top 6, especially in the second half of last year.
Yeah. Keller was so terrific last year. You hope he can just continue to go better and better. We can talk, the players all day, but let's just talk about the health of this franchise in Tempe right now. And, that's the number one question everybody wants to know. Are they going to get a new arena? Will it be Mesa? What's going to happen? For the long-term future, they've got to get an arena, Matt.
No question. And, I'll be honest, when the deal got turned down by the Tempe voters in May, it was a real gut punch. I remember walking out of not the meeting, but the party that they had, because everybody seemed to think that it was going to pass, and just driving home saying, to myself, what now? But I know behind the scenes, they've been working really hard to try to locate possible places within the valley. Publicly they've said that they've got 4 or 5 different places that they're interested in. They also signed an agreement to buy some land in Mesa. So, I don't, if you listen to Gary Bettman, I don't think there's a hard and fast deadline for this, but certainly it's got to move along, and it's got to, be figured out here in the next little while. And I'll tell you what, you mentioned Tempe and Mullet Arena. When the new building gets built, Pat, I want to make sure that I'm 13 rows off the ice, because that's where we are at Mullet.
Yeah, right.
And that part's been a lot of fun. The crowds have been great. It's a low ceiling at Mullet. Everybody gets into the game, and they had a lot of success there.
Yes,
last year. They had one of the best home records in hockey. So hopefully they'll be able to carry that over. But yes, long term, they definitely need a new place to play.
Logistically, I know it can't happen, but why can't they play one regular season game in Tucson? Don't you remember the Atlanta Hawks playing a game at the Omni in New Orleans? That's the game that Larry Bird went crazy on. The Green Bay Packers would always play a game in Milwaukee.
Yeah, they played few in Milwaukee, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of issues. I get it. Money's involved in everything, but I'd love to see them play one regular season game. Fun.
Well,
in,
I'll
in
tell you what,
Tucson.
I've been in this so long. I remember when the NHL did neutral site games, and ironically, before I got to Pittsburgh, I was in Anaheim, and we played 2 neutral site games in Phoenix, if you can believe it, at Old
Wow.
America West Arena. Yeah. When I was in the minors, the Blues were supposed to play Hartford of all teams down in Birmingham, Alabama, and ticket sales were so bad that they moved it to Peoria, which was the Blues farm team, and they sold it out, and it was like 8,500 people in the place. But yeah, you know what, I love going down, especially in preseason, to see the Coyotes down at the TCC. Great atmosphere on Sunday. Really enjoyed it. Or excuse me, on Saturday, it was a lot of fun, and hopefully they'll continue to do that, and I think they will.
Matt, I want to ask you real quick about the health of the league in general. And there seems to be a little bit of a bump now because at least this opening night tonight, you got Sidney Crosby and Connor Bedard. Connor Bedard, for those who don't know, is the great the next generational talent, like a Sidney Crosby was so many years ago for the Chicago Blackhawks. That's a lot of fun, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the health of the league, Pat, I don't think it's been any better. Even now, like there's Gary Bettman, the commissioner, has come out and said publicly that all the escrow money that's due the players from the pandemic era is going to be paid back. So, the league is doing great. The Ottawa Senators just sold to a new ownership group for under $1 billion. If you go back to the Anaheim and Florida expansion, those teams came in, I believe, for an expansion fee of $50 million, if you can believe that. So, yeah, I think the players owe a lot to the league. They owe a lot to Gary Bettman. I truly believe that. And, in terms of the health of the league, I don't think it's ever been better. It certainly hasn't been better since I've been involved.
Yeah.
Matt McConnell, we're going to be listening and hearing you and watching you on Laugh TV this Friday at 4:30, I believe, 9.2. And here in Tucson for the Coyotes regular season opener at the New Jersey Devils as they begin the 2023-24 season, year 3, I believe, of this rebuild. So thanks so much for a couple minutes
Thanks,
here.
Matt. Appreciate it. It was great seeing you again. It's been a little while.
Yeah, likewise. Can we do it again? I mean, if you
Yeah,
want
we'll
to do
definitely
this
do it again.
periodically,
We'll definitely do it
Absolutely.
again. Yeah.
Especially
I
because you
love
said it.
everybody down. Tucson's such a great city. I'll get back down there at some point, but just let me know. I'll come on anytime. This was fun.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks so much. Have a great trip out east and have a
Yes.
good game Friday.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
That was
In
Matt
fact,
McConnell.
they
Yeah, sure.
got
He wants to be
4
on. You said that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
on
no.
again.
And
We're
I
going to
fully
talk to
believe him.
the fans out there, especially with the agreement. We'll talk a little Coyotes.
Yes,
And
we
we didn't
will.
get
And
much to the Diamondbacks this week, but we'll touch on them next. Assuming they're still around, we'll touch on them next week.
yeah. Yeah, they will be. They got 4 games on the road to start, which is kind of unusual. They start 4 games on the road, but we'll see. As we talked about before, their home record was great. Road record last year was not great. Maybe this is an opportunity to get a little bit of a quick start. And hey, if that game Saturday you saw at TCC is any indication, they can score some goals. So I know it was only preseason, but they score some goals.
Yeah, terrific. All right, so we'll look forward to that. This has been the Huddle. We're out of time for KGUN9 streaming sports talk show every Tuesday. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. Thanks so much, everybody, live and on delay. And we'll be right back here next Tuesday at the same time talking Arizona football, probably some Diamondbacks and a little Coyotes as well.